Namaskar, dear viewers. Today we'll be discussing managing climate risks in Indian agriculture. We know fully well that agriculture is a climate sensitive enterprise. In fact, it is the largest enterprise in our country. This agriculture, if you look at it, every aspect of agriculture starting from land preparation, sowing, thereafter all the after-cultural practices, thereafter harvesting and even the post-production stages, everything is influenced by climate change. This topic of the climate risk management pertaining to agriculture is very, very important because we know that if you see, more than half of our Indian population is dependent on agricultural activity, directly or indirectly. Nevertheless, this agriculture as a sector, if you look at it, it is contributing only to an extent of 17% of gross value addition as far as Indian economy is concerned. But however, this Indian agriculture is contributing in terms of the livelihood security, food security, and also for the well-being of around 1.4 crore people. So it is indeed a very significant contribution by Indian agriculture. And this Indian agriculture, if you look at it, a lot of changes have happened since Indian independence, 1947. So in terms of the production, in terms of the productivity, in terms of even the net zone area, a lot of changes have taken place. If you see in the present day, the Indian agriculture production, if you look at it, total food grain production, it is around 300 million tonnes. But when we got independence in 1940s and 50s and 60s, the food grain production was only 50 million tonnes, almost 6 times increase is there in food grain production. But however, if you look at it, still in India, though we have enough food grain production, but 14% of our population is undernourished. So a lot of problems, malnutrition and undernourishment, is there still there. So we have set ourselves a goal of zero hunger by 2030. So in order to achieve this kind of goal, in fact, it's a huge task. We need to increase our agriculture production, and at the same time, we need to look at the risks that can affect or impact the agriculture. So, if you see on one side, the Indian population, the growth is there. The second is the urbanization, and the third important thing is a lot of changes in the diet. If you look at it, we are more fond of the protein-rich diets. A lot of changes that is taking place because of the changing dynamics, or in other words, the standard of living. So on one hand, these kind of challenges is increasing. On the other hand, we wanted to increase the agriculture production. And how to increase agriculture production? Because there is no scope for increasing the net zone area, we need to increase the productivity. But there are a lot of challenges there for agriculture. One important challenge is climate risks, and today's session will be discussing about those climate risks, how to manage those climatic risks so that we will be in a position to achieve food and nutrition security, and at the same time will be achieving zero hunger by the year 2030. To start with, if you see the climate change, it is affecting, as I said, that it is going to affect every aspect of agriculture. So if you see the bottom line is that we need to focus on the production aspect, distribution aspect, and also the consumption aspect. So these are the three important the pillars, in fact, to manage the climate risks in agriculture. So if you see, we have discussed the state of Indian agriculture, and as I said, that climate is the major the risk as far as the Indian agriculture or global agriculture is concerned. Because why it is a major risk? The important point here is that along with climate change, the climate variability is a very important issue. When I say variability, we will be not in a proper position to manage the variability in terms of the temperature, in terms of the rainfall, precipitation. There's a lot of variability both in the space and time dimensions. So this spatial and temporal variability, in terms of I'm talking about the precipitation, that can have a drastic effect on the food grain production, because that has been reported also in the recent past. If you see, because of the extreme events, whether it's the flood and drought, the kind of impact it has caused on the Indian agriculture, it is immense, because that has even reduced the income of the farmers, both in the Kharif season and Rabi season. So the statistics says that almost, if you see, 12% of there is a loss in revenue, farm income in case of some monsoon season, Kharif season. But in terms of the Rabi season, it is only 6%. So this is what the statistics says. So in nutshell, if you look at it, there is definitely, because of the climate change and climate variability, there is a lot of impact on the farmers' income, because we are trying to talk about how to double the farmers' income. So this is a great challenge. So in this regard, managing climate risk is significant. And when you talk about the aspect, because when you talk about the production aspect, the most important thing is that the yield losses because of climate change. And what has been predicted is that by the end of this century, almost 60% reduction in yield that is anticipated. And nevertheless, it will be dependent on the crop, even the location or the geographical settings, and also the scenarios, the climate change scenarios. However, it has been proved that 1/3 of yield variability that we are experiencing in any crop, that is attributed to the climate variability. So it's a very, very significant component, this climate change. So that is the reason why the topic is gaining importance, and at the same time we are taking all the pragmatic steps to manage the climate risks. And as I said that when you talk about the management is concerned, or in other words, the climate risk management is concerned, it's very complex. Why it is complex? Because there are a lot of uncertainties that is there, has been accumulated. Because of this uncertainty, what happened, it's very difficult to manage, because the issue is very complex. Uncertainty, it can be because of the production constraints, it can be because of the market uncertainty, and also it can be because of the income and the resource constraints. This all makes the problem of managing climate risk a huge task. And what we need to do it. So the bottom line is that we need to focus on the three important aspects, that is the production aspect, the distribution aspect, and the third important thing is the delivery issues. So these three are very, very important thing. So once we manage these kind of issues, three important issues, we'll be in a position to manage the climate risk. The second important thing is that if you look at the impacts, particularly the agricultural impact, the climate impacts on agriculture, the major component is the pest and disease attack, and also the supply chain management. So these also will be discussing in today's session. Before exactly getting into the topic, we need to understand the state of affairs. When I say state of affairs, what exactly the predictions are there for Indian agriculture, or for that matter, the climate change scenarios in India. The first and foremost important finding, or in fact the observation, is that it has been found that the minimum temperature, it is much higher than the maximum temperature. It's a very, very significant observation. So this rise in the minimum temperature can have a drastic effect on the Rabi crops, particularly the wheat crops. So what happened, because of the increase in the minimum temperature, it can have a drastic effect on the production and productivity of wheat crop. We know that rice and wheat are the staple food crop of our country. So that is a major point of concern. The second important observation is that the increase in the surface temperature, whether it's a minimum temperature or the maximum temperature, it has been more in case of northern part of India rather than the southern part of India. So that is another important finding. The third important thing is that when you talk about the variability, the temperature variability, whether it is a minimum or a maximum temperature, it is more during the Rabi season. Again, the wheat crop or Rabi crops will be significantly affected because of this temperature variability. The next important thing is that if you find in the recent past, whether it is the extreme events, drought, flood, tropical cyclones, these kind of events, it is fast increasing, and because of these events, that is going to drastically affect the agriculture system. And next important thing, as far as the state of the climate condition in India is concerned, if you see in the last century, the SST, that is called sea surface temperature, has increased. And because of the increase in the sea surface temperature, there is every possibility that the coastal locations, or in other words, the coastlines in our country, that can be affected. When you talk about the coastline, because most of the crops in the deltaic regions, whether it's a Kaveri Delta or a Krishna, Godavari Delta, in these deltas, it is known for the paddy crop. So because of the increase in the sea level, these crops or coastlines can be severely affected. Another major finding is that in the recent past, if you see that the occurrence of the tropical cyclones in the east coastline, that is increasing. And because of this occurrence of this tropical cyclone, that can have a drastic effect, disastrous effect on the human beings, that is there. It's been documented. On the other hand, if you look at it, there is a possibility of the seawater ingression, and also the coastal, the locations, if you look at it, many of the croplands can be salinized. So this is a major problem that we are facing as far as the climate change is concerned in India. The next one is that if you see the impacts, climate change impacts, let us see one by one. See, we are focusing on the production aspect. In the production aspect, we need to understand that what are the constraints and what best we can do to manage the climate risks. The first and most important thing is the croplands. When I talk about the croplands, how climate change can have an effect on the croplands. See, what has been predicted is that irrespective of the crops, if you see slowly and steadily, well, there is a decrease in yield. That's what has been predicted. And definitely as the time passes by, year passes by, because we are expecting that the temperature will increase in this century, and because of the increase in surface temperature, there is every possibility of yield decline in the crops. The second important thing, it has been documented that the yield loss has been observed in crops like wheat, irrigated rice, maize crops, and potato, and of course, nevertheless, the extent would be different. But if you see in unirrigated or in rain-fed areas, the more impact will be there because of the climate change. And very obvious thing that we are observing in the recent past is that the apple belt in Himachal Pradesh and Kashmir, the altitude, if you see it, it has been increasing. When I say at a higher altitude, the crop, the apple belt has been found. So in higher altitude, when I say, because then what happened at around 2500 meters above mean sea level, if this kind of crop has been found, so because the climatic condition is different, and that can have a drastic effect on the apple production also, horticulture crops. So, and same is the case with the beverages. When I say beverages, the most important thing is the tea and coffee, and it has been found that the Assam tea and the Arabica plantations, the coffee plantations, that has been severely affected because of the increase in surface temperature. Not only the yield aspect, even the quality of the crops, that is also significantly affected. It has been proved beyond doubt that the paddy, the grain quality and the wheat quality has been affected because of the changing the protein content. So that is also has to be taken into account, because not only the yield aspect, the quality of the crops, that is also affected because of climate change. And when you talk about the quality of the horticulture crops, particularly, it has been significantly affected because of climate change. And even I was just talking about the grain protein content, and not only that thing, even the minor nutrients like your zinc and other elements, that is very micronutrient. So that element, that their concentration has been severely affected because of climate change. So along with the yield aspect, the quality also is affected because of climate change. Now let us see the next important impact as far as the agriculture is concerned, that is the pest and disease. When you talk about pest and disease, there is a lot of interaction that is there between the crop and the pest and disease causing organisms and even the environment. So it is kind of a triangle, disease triangle, disease causing organism, we call it as a disease triangle. And this kind of interaction, because of climate change, that is changing fast. And this interaction, when you talk about it, because in natural dynamics, if you see, there is a the prey predator relationship will be there, and this kind of relationship is affected because of climate change. That we need to take into account. The second important observation that we have seen as far as the pest and disease impact is concerned is that if you see because of the increase in surface air temperature, the particularly the leaf eating pest, we call it as defoliators, their impact is much more observed on foliages which is having high carbon to N ratio. So it is a significant thing because if there is a lot of impact on the foliage, definitely the photosynthetic efficiency and henceforth the yield of the crops will be severely affected. And another important thing as far as the pest and disease dynamics is concerned, if you see there is a lot of what you call asynchrony between the pest and also the availability of food. So this is a very important aspect that has to be taken into account because the breeding cycle or reproductive cycle of the pest that is increasing, and also if you see because of the asynchrony the impact can be much higher. So, and in the recent past, if you see most of the pest, the crop pest like American tomato moth or black fly, even the locust, it's a very significant. So they have become more of invasive species. So look at the impact. So because of the changing climatic condition, these pests has become invasive in nature. So their impact will be much higher. That has been observed in the recent attack of the locust attack in the northwestern part of India, Rajasthan. 2020, there was a locust attack. It is the most devastating locust attack. And because of that locust attack, the crops like the rapeseed and mustard have been severely affected because of the locust attack. Now, another one is that we have talked about the crop, we have talked about the pest and disease, we need to talk about the livestock as well. So when you talk about the livestock, definitely the heat shock or the increase in surface temperature, that can have a drastic effect on the well-being of the animals as well. When you talk about the animals, definitely the cattle and buffalo, their yield, the milk yield will be drastically reduced because of climate change. The second important thing is that it has been observed that the meat quality in case of the goat, that has also been significantly affected. Not only the livestock, even in case of the poultry, there has been observed that reduction in the yield and the egg production. That is there as far as the livestock is concerned. And next one is that the fisheries. As far as the fisheries sector is concerned, there is a lot of change in the dynamics, whether it is the distribution of species or abundance of the species. A lot of changes because of the increase in the surface sea temperature as well as the sea surface temperature. Even the best example is that the oil sardine species that has been found in the northern latitudes. I mean, if you look at it, somewhere kind of a migration that is there. I mean, because increase in surface temperature can have a drastic effect on the fish production as well. And next one is that if you see in a nutshell what kind of impact it can have on the farmers. So there will be a lot of demand and supply inequalities will be there, and this climate change can have challenge their income or generating capacity or livelihood security it can affect. And also if you see because of a lot of uncertainty that is there in the farmers' income, their ability to invest more in agriculture sector in the coming years, that will be severely affected. So these all aspects has to be taken into account for managing climate risks. So these are all about the climate change impacts. Now let us look at the strategies. When you look at the strategies, those strategies should be definitely specific to the location, and it also depends on the socio-economic condition of the farmers and what kind of government support they have, because whatever the technology we are talking about, it has to be implemented by the farmers, and they need certain incentives also. They need certain support from resource support or the financial support, or even in the technological support also. So for this, definitely the socio-economic condition of the farmers is a very important parameter that has to be taken into account. So now let us look at the strategies. The first and foremost important strategy is that as far as the crop is concerned, we need to develop or breed certain crop varieties or the crops which are resistant to the drought or a flood or any kind of abiotic stresses. So that is the most important aspect as far as the breeding of new crop varieties are concerned. The second important thing is that it has been observed in certain crop plants like horticulture crop plants particularly, the propagation that's called normally in certain crops we'll go for grafting as a propagation technique. So that has been observed that in case of the tomato crop, if it has been grafted on a brinjal rootstock, it is providing a lot of flood resistance. So that is a significant thing, because that the kind of compatibility between the scion and the rootstock that has been capitalized, harnessed to achieve this kind of resistance, stress resistance. Next important strategy is the diversification. When you talk about diversification, we have been talking about diversification for quite some time, and this diversification, what I'm talking about is that how to instill kind of a climate resilience into the agriculture production system. So for that to happen, we need to think about new crop varieties, new crops also, and that way what happened, you can achieve crop diversification. So when you talk about the new crops, for instance, in the down south, if you see new crop, the durian fruit, it's a very popular one, or dragon fruit, it's coming up. When you talk about the dragon fruit, because it is in a position, it has the ability to sustain even under the water scarce condition or rain-fed condition, it can be grown, dragon fruit. And pomegranate is a good kind of crop. So these kind of new crops should be investigated and explored, that those crops can be incorporated in the cropping pattern also. So in that way what happened, we'll be achieving diversification and the farmer's income can be enhanced. Next one, as far as the livestock is concerned, as far as like your crops, we need to think about certain breeds which are resistant to the stress, like thermal stress. And incidentally, if you look at it, our indigenous breeds, they are very tolerant to this kind of the drought and hardiness. So those kind of indigenous breeds should be part of our strategy. However, if you see, the indigenous breeds are not so much productive when you compare to the crossbred, but the crossbred livestocks, they are more susceptible to climate stresses. These are the strategies. And coming to other strategies, the most significant, as far as the natural resource management is concerned, the most significant strategy is conservation agriculture. When you talk about conservation agriculture, because the basic purpose of conservation agriculture is that it can definitely reduce the carbon footprint, and it can increase the profitability and productivity of the farmers, and also it will definitely improve the soil ecosystem. So this conservation agriculture is definitely an important strategy to manage the climate risk, because it's an adaptation tool. The next one is the farm mechanization. When you talk about a farm mechanization, it's a very significant thing, because agriculture mechanization is definitely required to increase the agriculture production. We have seen whether the use of a tractor or every tractor mounted implements. It's essentially important for increasing the productivity, cropping intensity as well. So, but when you talk about farm mechanization, we can think about certain use of certain implements which can be driven by renewable energy, like your solar power vehicles, and even the implements. If it is powered by the solar energy, that definitely it will be more sustainable, and it will be definitely reducing the carbon footprint, because this agriculture sector as such also, if you look at it as a sector, it is also contributing immensely to the climate change, because it is almost 16% of greenhouse gases have been emitted by the agriculture sector. However, if you look at the sector within agriculture, that is the paddy, ruminants, they are also contributing to climate change. But this use of energy in agriculture is also significant. So we need to think about certain strategies so that the renewable energy can be used in agriculture, so that the carbon footprint can be reduced. Next one is that when you talk about the management, water management. When you talk about water management, definitely we need to look at the certain irrigation methods, which is very low cost, and at the same time it will be very efficient, because resource conserving, it has to be efficient in terms of irrigation efficiency, and also it should be cause less of harm to the environment. That is these kind of irrigation methods has to be taken into account, particularly the pressurized the methods, irrigation methods like sprinkler or drip irrigation, that can be also sought out, because this kind of drip irrigation is known for increasing water use efficiency. It is known for efficient utilization of resources. This is regard with the irrigation management or water management. And associated with water management is the watershed management. It's a very significant component when you talk about watershed management, because India is known for this thing as far as watershed management. Since independence, we have been seeing a lot of watershed development programs. Basically, it's provides a lot of employment opportunities also. The best important thing is that recently the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. It provides a lot of employment opportunities to the rural people who are for doing unskilled work, of course. But this is an important strategy that can be capitalized, because by going for a watershed development or watershed management, what happens, it's an adaptation tool, and that this strategy can be used for managing climate risk in agriculture also. Next one is that the nutrient management. When you talk about nutrient management, since if you see nutrient management, how it is important, because we've been using the soil test based recommendations, because whenever you're talking about the nutrients, needs based on the need only, we need to apply for nutrients. So for that, because soil test based recommendations, that is a very significant thing. We can think about certain strategies that can utilize the nutrients more efficiently. Certain strategies like neem coated urea that can be applied, so that what will happen, the use of fertilizers, it will be much increased, and because of this increased efficiency, what happened, the rooting ability of the crops, that will be increased, and also the soil microbial ecosystem, that also will be improved significantly. And this is a very important aspect that has to be taken into account. Why? Because these things will help the system, agriculture production system, to manage the climate risks. So this is about the nutrient management. Next strategy is the provision of services like agro-advisory service to the farmers, and also even the timely credit to the farmers also will be very, very important contribution, because that can help the farmers to increase their income also. The last one is that the insurance facilities, because when you talk about insurance, because the risk is increasing because of climate risk, climate change, and other parameters also. So definitely what you call the weather-based insurance also will be a very important strategy. So to conclude this session, we need to manage the climate risks is a very pertinent issue, and for that to happen, we need to focus on three important aspects: production, distribution, and delivery mechanisms. And because the basic thing is that a lot of uncertainty is there, whether it's a market or a price volatility or income uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty is there. We need to reduce those uncertainty and make the farmers more resilient. Thank you very much.